We're going to be ranking every single West Ham manager in the history of the club. You do not want to miss it. Where does David Moyes rank? I'm Dan Lawless, this is West Ham Fan TV, and I'm joined by a very special guest. We've got Alfie West Ham online. He's going to be joining me. Mate, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, it should be decent. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to see where you put certain managers, like, for example, David Moyes.
Yes, that is going to be the one. Obviously, for those who don't know, we go back and forth a lot and have a lot of debates about David Moyes, or Mr. Moyes, as Alfie calls him. So, we've been in the Twitter spaces talking about Moyes, and there's a bit of debate there to be had, and there will definitely be some debate to be had today. But I have to give you credit, mate, for this video. You came to me and said, "Yeah, I've got an idea." I've been wanting to do this style of video for a while, but when you came to me with this particular video, I really like the idea.
I thought I have a debate with you all the time about Moyes, and then I thought, how about a manager tier list just to see where, because we've brought up Pardew a lot in the past as well.
Yeah.
You've praised him. I think I've seen other people as well say they think he's done a better job than Moyes. So I thought, what better to do than a manager tier list?
Sid King, West Ham's first ever manager. 30 years at the club he spent. And yeah, mate, look, you've both done our research. I mean, iconic figure at the club.
Yeah, 638 games, 248 wins, 146 draws, 244 losses. I think just for the facts that he was sort of our first ever manager, he established the grounds of what West Ham would be. I think that puts him higher than maybe someone else of his record would have, if that makes sense, because he was the guy who established the way we would play and stuff like that. His best finish, I believe, was 6th in 1926-27 in the top flight. And his record isn't bad.
No, that's it. And when you look at it, he took us to the top division. He took West Ham to the top of the Football League, I think 1919, and got us to an FA Cup final. He took us to the Football League in 1990 and then promoted to the top flight in 1923 with an FA Cup final. So that's pretty decent, from taking West Ham from out of the Football League all the way to the top flight and then a cup final. It's massive, and it allowed us to build off so much. When you look at the context of that time, it's not like today coming in and managing an established Premier League powerhouse with money and all of that stuff. So that works in his favor. We did get relegated under him in 1932, I believe. And yeah, really, really sad story. What I was reading about, that he actually got a bit of depression after West Ham got relegated, and ended up sort of, taking his own life.
Yeah, that's really sad. Especially because back in those days, mental health wasn't as talked about. Yeah, that is really sad, but it showed how much he cared about the club, and it's just another thing that makes me rank him higher than another manager with his record would be, because he came in, he loved the club, he helped establish the club, 30 years as manager. It's quite incredible, really.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it was East Ham Echo that said, West Ham is Sid King and Sid King is West Ham, and I would, based on everything we've just said, I would put him as a great.
Yeah, I completely agree, yeah.
After that, we've got Charlie Painter, who managed the club from 1932 to 1950 and managed West Ham during the Second World War, solely in the second division, I believe, of English football. This is the thing that works against him, is he didn't get us promoted. He managed us, I believe, throughout his whole time was in the second division.
Yeah, it does work against him. Obviously, it was a difficult time in which he was managing. Ted Fenton after him managed for a much less period of time, but actually managed literally the exact same amount of games. I think it was only 4 more that Ted Fenton had, despite a much less period of time as manager. 480 games at the club, 198 wins, 116 draws, and 166 losses. Relegated in 1932 before his arrival, and prior to the Second World War, and it appeared the club was on course to gain promotion back to the top flight I think we have to remember that. But the
Yeah,
onset of the war caused the side to break up. And we also had a Football League War Cup final win over Blackburn Rovers in June 1940 under his guidance. So I don't know how
yeah.
much you read into that, but
Well, the thing is, I look at that, right, and no one really counts that as a trophy.
yeah,
But when you look at it, the league and the FA Cup were, put on pause for the war. So that was to be in place of the FA Cup. It's a legit trophy that they had in place of, the regular competitions. So I think that has to count for something.
yeah, I agree. I think because it wasn't counted as a major trophy, people don't really read into it. But in a way, it probably should have, if we're honest. It's just that it was very different back then because of the World War and what was going on in the world. But
Yeah, I mean, put
actually,
ourselves in mind today, right?
yeah,
Say during COVID, they, pause the league, pause the FA Cup, and go, right, okay, this is going to be the pandemic cup or whatever, and we're going to have teams during the pandemic play off and see who's going to win this trophy. We'd count that as a trophy
oh yeah.
because it's the only trophy you can compete for.
I'd personally, in my opinion, I'd put him in decent. I'd say he was good, but obviously we haven't quite got the word into that. But decent slash good, I'd
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
he goes in decent. Now, Ted Fenton, he's one that I, was looking at. You think, how is he not mentioned more? He managed us from 1950 to 1961.
Hmm.
Won the Division Two Championship 1957. Record
Yeah.
number of goals under him,
Yeah.
and established the academy and the youth team.
Yeah.
That is
It's
massive.
incredible. Yeah, that's what I was reading as well. When we returned to the top flight after a 26-year absence, before achieving an outstanding sixth place finish in Division One, literally the following season after we were promoted. So I don't know why he isn't mentioned as much as he probably should be. As you said, he was the guy who originally brought through people like Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst. In fact, 7 of the side who won the FA Cup in 1964 had been brought through or signed by Fenton. Obviously, the managers after him had more of a say in their progression, but I think he should certainly be mentioned more than he is. And I don't know where you'd rank him, but once again, I'm thinking between decent and great.
Yeah, I think for a club that calls itself the Academy of Football,
Yeah.
and we pride ourselves on our academy and the players, I don't think we win that FA Cup without Ted Fenton establishing that academy. I think for that and his influence, he should be considered a great.
Yeah, I agree. I would put him in great, but the only thing I'm thinking is I'm looking at it now, all the managers we've had. I think a lot of the older managers are going to be ranked higher. And I'm looking at some of our managers in recent years, which I believe will be ranked a lot lower. And I think the fact that managers got a lot longer back then, and let's be fair, a lot of the older managers, the negatives throughout their career, such as relegation and stuff like that, aren't really talked about nowadays. I
Yeah.
think they do get away with that in the context of this tier list a little bit.
What we
But
have to remember as well, and I think Nick from Claret Blues made this point when you was on with him,
yeah,
is that these older managers were not getting paid anywhere near what the today's managers are, even if you adjust for inflation. So, when you look at it, a lot of these managers were getting basic salary.
mhm,
So it wasn't, and the resources that they had to deal with, it was a different ball game. And, there wasn't the influx of money. So I think clubs were generally less stable back then. Um, and it was a little bit more, it was harder to solidify your place. So I think there's an element of that. I think what you say is true. They definitely did get more time. And it would be interesting to see if West Ham had given a Bilic 10 years or a Pellegrini well, we gave Big Sam near enough that. But yeah, Moyes even. These two particularly, yeah, they got a long time, but they really laid down foundations for this club that we benefited from, in years to come. And then next up, Ron Greenwood. This is one
yeah.
managers that a lot of fans talk about.
Ron Greenwood obviously had an incredible tenure. Wasn't necessarily his win percentage or anything like that, but from what I've read and what I've heard, he was a pioneer of the way we played at the time. He actually brought through John Lyall as a coach as well.
Yeah.
On the West Ham website, sorry, it actually says he's widely considered to be an innovative visionary. He was the first manager who guided West Ham to the first major trophies in the club's history, if obviously you don't include that the War Cup, which we spoke about previously. We beat Preston in the FA Cup final in 1964. And then the year after as well, we won the European Cup Winners' Cup final 2-0. So 2 trophies in 2 years. He obviously done a great job. Once again, had a very lengthy period of time at the club. But for me, it's very simple. He's got to go in great and
Yeah.
potentially could be bumped up later.
Yes, we will be this category. We'll be putting one manager there.
Yeah.
And over my dead body, will it be David Moyes? But we'll see how the argument goes. Trust me, there's been people that have argued with me on Twitter that he should go there. But yeah, he helped develop the West Ham way of playing football that so many fans love that as well. So yeah, he has to be a great. We will be as we go and as we start feeling that there may be some we move and we bump around based on so we will see that. So but yeah, absolute one of the greats. Now this for me, John Lyall is a manager that I wasn't around for. I think I was a baby when he got sacked, and but he's a manager to me that historically I love. This he just oozes class. The guy oozes class, and all the stories about him that I've heard, from ex-players and everything, just speak to what a great man he was off the pitch. Just an unbelievable human being.
Well, obviously, I as well was not alive during his tenure, but 770 games, 308 wins, 194 draws, and 268 losses. As I mentioned previously, he was originally apprentice coach under Greenwood, but once again, done a very good job. I believe this might be controversial, but I don't think it will be. Greenwood laid a lot of the foundations for Lyall to do well initially, but that's not taking anything away from Lyall. He was clearly a great coach and had innovative ideas of his own. A year after his appointment, we won the 1975 FA Cup final against Fulham. And the following season, we got our second European Cup Winners' Cup. So, yeah, obviously done a great job trophy-wise.
Well, we got runners-up for that Cup Winners' Cup. We got after the FA Cup.
Oh yes, sorry.
76.
Only Anderlecht beat us. Sorry about that. Anderlecht beat us in Brussels, but still,
get
for West Ham manager, that's pretty good. Considering how much I bring up Mr. Moyes' semi-final, so we've got to talk about that.
Yeah, yes, it's huge. Obviously, again, another FA Cup in 1980 over Arsenal, last ever team to win it in the second division.
Yeah,
which is massive, but also got us to a League Cup final when the same year he won us the second division title. We got relegated twice under him, once in 78, once in 89, which obviously is a point against him. But he has to be up there.
People really like the fact that he played the West Ham way, quote unquote. Played a nice brand of football. And we were good to watch. And as you said, he was loved as a man, loved as a manager. The club had a really good feel to it during his tenure. And sadly, after our relegation in 1980-89, that's when he left the club for Lou Macari. So, but obviously he's got to be in great again.
Yeah, so many fans had West Ham as their second team through watching us play under this man, and some cases Ron Greenwood as well. And we became so beloved through fans of other clubs. Now this is where it gets interesting. We've given all the praise. We've talked up and waxed lyrical over managers of the past. Now this gets interesting. Lou Macari took over from the great John Lyall, and I think he was only here like a few months. I think I haven't got the dates in front of me, but he weren't here long.
He actually stepped down from his post. I don't know whether it was he stepped down or he was sacked, but it happened because allegations were made against him by a Sunday newspaper regarding betting and illegal payments at Swindon, which obviously isn't ideal for a manager to be doing, especially when we had John Lyall, who was so likable before him. His record was, it was okay. 14 wins, 13 draws, and 12 losses. But obviously, we were in the second division, so it's not ideal for a club of our size. We did reach the League Cup semi-final, but we lost 6-0 in the first leg against Oldham. Overall, I think he done a pretty poor job, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, spectacularly. I mean, what works in his favour is he did bring in like Ludek McCloskey, Trevor Morley, Martin Allen, Ian Bishop. So brought in some good players. But from what I've heard, and I've gone and heard a lot of ex-players speak, he wasn't particularly liked by the players either. So I think he has to go down as terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
I would stick him there. The first terrible of the day. Then we go to another great player. Was he a great manager? This is what we got to look at. Billy Bonds. He has a stand named after him. 1990 to 1994. Took over from Lou Macari.
He had a mixed tenure, in my opinion. I don't think he was great. I don't think he was terrible. 227 games, 99 wins, 61 draws, and 67 losses. 7th in Division 2 in his first few months in charge. And then we came back to the top flight via the runners-up spot. And we also lost in the FA Cup semi-final by Forest in 1990-91.
Promotion and an FA Cup semi is decent. You know, this is a fan base that loves a cup run. So that works in his favour. We did get relegated during the bond scheme.
Yeah.
Which I think that that period of time where they want, and the bond scheme, went through, there's still bondholders to this day where they basically sold bonds to fans to raise money. I think it was to develop the stadium. And they wanted to develop the stadium, so they wanted to do it through selling bonds to the fans, and they would get bonuses. So if we get to the Conference Cup final, bondholders get first dibs on those tickets. And it was massively met with backlash. Fans, did not want it. Fans were storming the pitch, protesting the famous corner flag that we saw under Moyes' tenure against Burnley. That was originally done, at Upton Park under Billy Bonds. And you got that picture of Julian Dixon, the guy with the flag. That was over the Bonds scheme. So tough time to manage West Ham, but fairly, as everything we've talked about, fairly unremarkable tenure. So
I'd stick him in bang average personally.
Yeah, it hurts me because the wording. Part of me wants to, but it's hard, really. And
no, I think that's sentimentality playing in.
Yeah, it does. There's an element of sentimentality, but he wasn't bad. But he didn't get the chance to be great. Ultimately, he stepped down because they wanted to reshuffle the management team. They wanted him to take a director's job, paid, and have Harry Redknapp as manager, which he wasn't happy about, and he turned it down. Harry Redknapp took the manager's job, and that left a big rift and falling out. They were really good friends, Redknapp and Bonds. And still to this day, Bonds, I went to Billy Bonds' night and he was talking about it, and he still hasn't forgiven him. Still hasn't spoke to Redknapp over it. Speaking on Harry Redknapp. Oh,
yeah, what shady figure. He's a shady figure, in my opinion.
He is. But he is a shady figure, and he's a bit controversial figure. Some West Ham fans love him because he was their first manager, gave us some great times, great to watch the club. Great memories, stories galore. But Billy Bonds is an absolute hero at West Ham, and a lot of fans don't like how we did Bonds, and a lot of other elements around Redknapp. People haven't forgiven the fact that he went on to manage Tottenham, worked against him as well. Obviously, Billy Bonds went on to manage Millwall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, he had a great tenure at West Ham in 1994 to 2001. He had some good league finishes, highest ever in the Premier League to date, 5th, and an Intertoto Cup. which
Yeah.
a lot of fans don't count. Some fans count, some fans don't count. It was a cup to be won.
He also brought through the like 6 academy players that he always talks about. Obviously, his nephew Frank Lampard Jr. and Rio were a part of that. He's about as loyal as Katie Price, I've got to be honest. From what he's done with Billy Bonds, him going to Spurs, I mean, the man is definitely shady with his money as well. My nan actually used to be part of the supporters club at West Ham during his tenure. And she can't stand him. She thinks he's a right crook. I've got to be honest. But um, I'd put him. Obviously, his record is good. It's pretty decent.
Yeah,
327 games, won 121, lost as many as we won, but we drew 85. Brought through some great young players. Also brought Paolo into the club.
excellent football.
Yeah, really good football, entertaining to watch. So I think you've got to put him in decent at least, but I think the
Yeah,
shadiness behind the scenes means that he can't be in great.
yeah. It's hard to really. To me, if there was one between decent and great, he would go there. He's not
Yeah,
quite there, but he's a bit better than that.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe I'll put him there, and that's like okay, he's the
yeah,
best of
yeah,
the decents.
yeah.
Or is he? We'll see. This one's very interesting. Glenn Roeder, very
Mm.
controversial manager at West Ham, recently passed away, sadly.
His record overall isn't great. 25 wins, 22 draws, 35 losses, but he did guide us to 7th in his first season. Some would say that's because of the foundations laid by Redknapp on the pitch. So I think,
Today, that would get us European football.
yeah, yeah, true. But we were relegated the next season. He wasn't. He done
42
terrible in
points,
the
though. 42 points, a record points, high points for relegation as
Yeah,
well.
but a lot of those points were actually won when Trevor Brooking was caretaker.
I think that first season works in his favour, but yeah, getting relegated with players of that caliber, I'd put him in crap personally.
Yeah, I would as well.
It's hard to that really. He could have been bang average to decent. I mean, I think if he keeps us up, if he don't get relegated, are we? So we're not. We've got Brook in there, right? We've got Brook in. We've got Keane. We didn't mention. It's hard to really judge them. They're there, but they're
Yeah,
interim managers, so you can't say. It's hard to. You can't judge. It's unfair to judge them against all these managers who had time.
yeah. Brookings actually his overall record through his interim tenures, I think he had two, is very good. 14 games, 9 wins, 4 draws, 1 loss. But I mean, how much he actually done during those tenures is we don't really know, do we? Because he
Yeah.
obviously came in as an interim, so I suppose you could rank him as decent or something like that.
But this is why, for me, right, just going on to Moyes, is this talk about there's no point sacking him because who's out there, is why I'm thinking if we lose the Southampton game, I'd go towards an interim because, look, Trevor Brooking weren't an experienced manager, but it was a fresh voice coming in, lifting a dark cloud over the players. And yeah, it worked. And sometimes if it looks that desperate, you've got to do it. So that I think is an example because you can't look at it and go, well, and it's nothing away from Trevor Brooking, but Trevor Brooking was such a great manager because he never went on to really be a manager.
Yeah,
So that's an argument for, to me, so if it's the Southampton game, gone interim. But yeah, we can't really rank him. Now, this man, Alan Pardew, got West Ham promoted. I think it was the second time of trying, wasn't it? He
yeah.
failed the first time. And then the following season, we lost to Palace, as Palace fans like to remind us.
Yeah, lost to Palace. To be fair, we were actually better in his first season throughout the year than the second. But we happened to win the playoff final in the second, thanks to a Zamora winner against Preston. But form was up and down in the second season. Obviously, we lost in the first season. His overall record isn't bad: 163 games, 67 wins, 58 losses, and 38 draws. But yeah, up and down during that second season. Then obviously his first season back in the Prem was very positive because we got ninth and reached an FA Cup final.
Yeah. We played some good football under Pardew. I enjoyed the football we played. He wasn't blessed with a huge amount of resources. He brought us up from the championship and had to add a few players, try and add players from that team that was in the championship for a few seasons, and got us playing some good stuff. And obviously, look, we have to talk about the FA Cup final. He came within seconds of where he came closer than any manager has ever come without winning the trophy to winning the trophy. And just a crap clearance and a bit of absolute magic from Gerrard takes us to penalties and we don't win it. So look, and from that point, you can't fault Pardew. He done everything he needed to do to set us to have us win that game against Liverpool, who I think that was the season after they won the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. I think they won it Champions
Yeah,
League
yeah,
2005.
they did win it in 2005. Yeah,
Yeah, so we're the current Champions League holders. We're against, and we took them to the limit, and we came within seconds of winning the FA Cup. If we win that, you can't deny it. But yeah, I can't blame him for us not winning it.
yeah, I agree.
I think the following season, when it was we won the Great Escape, or was it the season after that? We got Tevez and Mascherano in on under dodgy circumstance, third party ownership.
Also, he couldn't really get the best at times out of Tevez, and especially Mascherano. And he was sacked after we lost in the League Cup to Chesterfield, and then we lost in the League Cup to Chesterfield, and then he was sacked after we lost 4-0 to Bolton. So, yeah, that season definitely went downhill.
Yeah, and I remember that season well because I was buzzing when we signed Tevez and Mascherano. So many fans of other clubs, Tottenham, everything. Well, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? I was buzzing, right? And they took so long to get going. You were waiting for them to get good. Mascherano never really took off, but Tevez obviously, like last 10 games or so, then he started to hit it and then he went. So it
Yeah,
was, massively disappointing. So that works against him. But I would put him in decent.
I
I
agree.
can't put him next to these men.
I agree. I only see one, maybe two people that could sneak into the great column now, and I think Pardew's decent, very decent, but decent.
That's so right. Let's think about this logic. If we to make this a little bit more interesting, from left to right is the best of the decent, best of each
Yeah,
category. So Redknapp to me is the best of the decent. I
agreed.
think now it's a question of does Pardew go above Charlie
Yeah,
Painter?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the FA Cup to come us that bring us that close to winning it. He's behind Redknapp to me. Alan Kirbishley, the last club he ever managed, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah, what can I say about this man? Not much to say. Unremarkable, really.
yeah. Not the best of stints under him, to be fair, but it was a bit disappointing. I think sadly we're gonna have to put him in one of the lower tiers.
Yeah, to me, he floats between there. Like he's a bit better than he weren't. I mean, we didn't get relegated under him. He'd be
No,
better, definitely above Roda,
yeah,
but we just weren't. We weren't great under him, and but it's hard. Like then, because when you look at Bonds' record, I'm tempted to put it bang average. I mean, he weren't terrible. We didn't have a relegation under him or anything, but he
I've
weren't
also
great.
heard that we weren't the best to watch. I don't know how true that is, but from what I was reading, we were quite uninspiring and he didn't
Yeah,
really take us anywhere good. I don't know. He was either bang average or crap.
I think I'll put him above Roda in crap, which is hard. But yeah, the football, everything, you know, it works against him.
Yeah.
Next up, Gianfranco Zola, which was
Yes.
a very bold appointment.
Very obscure. he was our first foreign manager. Um, Obscure for the way we were run at the time. He was only there from 15th of September 2008 to the 11th of May 2010. His record overall was crap. 80 games, 23 wins, 21 draws, and 36 losses. Came 2 points off Europe in our first season under
Yeah.
him, which was actually decent, but unfortunately, next season we only got 35 points and he was sacked. Probably
The
should have
football
been
was
playing instead.
Yeah, no, that is the thing. And I remember at the time, and I was like, why can't he just be a player manager? Why don't he do it? Um, and unfortunately he didn't. And a lot of the players used to say in training, like he was just doing everyone in training. He's brilliant. So I wish he could have been a player manager. But the football was great to watch under Zola, I
Yeah.
have to say.
So
So
where would you put him? Bang
I
average?
would personally, I'd put him in bang average. I know, his last season wasn't great. I would have personally rather have stuck with him than got the next man in. But yeah, I'd put him bang average after Billy Bonds. I really liked Zola. I enjoyed watching us under Zola.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was some good times. So yeah, I'd put him bang average, to be fair. Avram Grant.
Flipping hell. For me,
Unbelievable.
it's straight terrible.
Yeah, he has to go. He has to go terrible. Absolutely awful record. Only better than, I think the only record he's better at then is West Ham this season. He's better at that in the
Yeah.
Premier League.
We do
So,
have to say though, we did. I hate to play down Zola, but we did come 17th the year before Grant's appointment on 35 points. So he weren't exactly walking into a changing room of brilliance, was he?
no,
He did
no.
make some high profile signings though, which you've got to say about Thomas Hitchelberger, Pablo Barrera, Winston Reid actually was signed by him. But yeah, we were shocking. We lost our
Yeah.
first 4 matches in the Prem. I mean, it couldn't really get much worse.
Hitzelsberger was actually a good player, but I think he was injured for a good period of time under Avram Grant. So there are like the what ifs, but I think again, and this puts me to this season, right? Injuries happen, and you need to be able to deal with that without, okay, I'm losing a couple of players, so we're totally going to implode.
Yeah.
And I just think it was just a terrible appointment. You can tell they signed him. It was, I believe he was, wasn't he Golden Sullivan's first appointment, and they came in when Zola was in charge, if I remember
Yeah.
rightly. Yeah. So this was gold. This was to set the tone for the Golden Sullivan era of West Ham. And classic Sullivan, right? Oh, he was at Chelsea. Yeah.
His record at Chelsea was brilliant, to be fair.
Yeah, but he didn't he go somewhere? I can't remember if he went Israel before or after we signed him.
I think it well, he definitely didn't come straight from Chelsea to West Ham,
No.
and he definitely had another club after Chelsea.
Terrible, but I have to put him above Lou Macari, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a design, the betting and everything like that. So he's officially not West Ham's worst ever manager. There we go. Well done, Avram Grant. So right, Avram Grant, yes, gets us relegated, and we bring in this man. This is going to be controversial. This is it. Big Sam Allardyce.
He done a good job, didn't he?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. He gets a lot of hate, but he gets us relegated. He gets promoted first time of asking. Granted, through the playoffs, and the team that we had at the time probably should have got promoted automatically. But the master stroke that he did in convincing Kevin Nolan to step down, we benefited from that for years to come. It was a genius signing. I really enjoyed watching us this season. I don't know how much you remember of the Big Sam era.
Yeah, I remember quite a bit of it actually.
Yeah, the championship period was one of my best times in football. I remember being at the game the last time we beat Brighton, something like 6-0. And that's what it was like. And I really enjoyed, going Upton Park, was in the championship, all these different teams, we were winning. For me, a good season. we played for the most part crap football under Sam. That was the bone of contention. Like when we got to the Premier League, I think he got us a top 10 finish first
Yeah,
season. He got
and
there first.
straight away with a, let's be honest, horrendous squad for what it was. It was a shocking squad, and he got 10th.
The big highlight for me was his last season at West Ham. Brings in, some good players, Aaron Creswell, Diafra Sacco, Enna Valencia. I think he brought in Zarate, Amafurtano, some good players. Stuart Downing. He brought obviously Andy Carroll a couple of years prior. And Big Sam and Big Sullivan told him that season. Everyone was moaning about the football season after season, confronting Sullivan about him at away games. They were sick of him, protests, all that. Sullivan said to him, right, it's your last chance. Either you play the West Ham way or you're out, right? We want attacking football. And to his credit, he played some of the best football I've ever seen at this club.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. It was a joy. I mean, what do you remember about that period?
I remember being fourth at Christmas. I remember Sacco being unreal for a time. Especially that chip he scored against Liverpool. We were good to watch. We were just good to watch for half a season. We were good to watch, I should say. And it was a bit of a shame because Sam had that sort of football in his locker, and even since leaving West Ham, he's not shown it. So I don't know what happened, but suddenly he pulled out some Barcelona-style football, and we were actually good to watch.
Yeah, honestly, swashbuckling football. It was brilliant. He had Stuart Downing in that tip of the diamond. Downing got an England call-up for the first time in years as a result of it. He was in great form. And then around Christmas time, when I think like Nolan came back, and this was the period where fans had sort of turned on Nolan, was sort of sick of him being in the team. He was coming sort of towards the end of his career. And he sort of shoehorns Nolan back in and puts Downing back on the wing. And we just start playing shit. And we start free falling. But took us up, stabilised us. He has to go decent for me.
Yeah. Definitely indecent. Yeah, 100%.
Question is it better than Charlie Painter decent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't put him. We never came anywhere close or to sniffing a trophy under Big Sam. In fact, a lot of the cup competitions he threw away. Obviously, we had the notorious battering against Man City. We played the kids, Nottingham Forest.
Yeah. Roger Johnson at the back, and we lost that 6-0.
Yeah, I think the aggregate score was really bad for him. It was like a cricket score across both legs. Massively disrespected the cup competitions. No real interest in youth. I'm talking myself out of putting him there now. We rigged him up, but yeah, World War. Sorry, Slaven Bilic. This was the time. Was quite an exciting period. We was approaching several managers, including Jurgen Klopp, I believe. So Bilic wasn't our first choice. We was aiming big post Sam. Honestly, I was on the internet a lot of the time, looking up, ITK news and everything, trying to see who's the next manager going to be. And I got excited by Bilic. It was an exciting young prospect. He was beloved in Turkey at Besiktas. And he come in, ex-West Ham player, likable guy. And he come in and gave us the greatest send-off. Gave us a fantastic send-off to Upton Park.
Yeah, I don't think personally, like just evaluating him as a manager, I think he's a poor manager. But in the 15-16 season, he played probably the best football we've seen in years and years. Although we were shocking defensively, we were so good to watch. We had Lanzini and Payet playing in the same team. Aaron Creswell was phenomenal at the time. Didn't really have anyone who was scoring too many goals, and maybe if we did, we could have finished higher. I think Payet and Andy Carroll were our joint top scorers in the league. And 3 of Carroll's goals came at home to Arsenal in one game. So,
Sacco was injured quite a bit this season. I think that's when he started having back problems.
Yeah.
As well. who we missed him. So he was in and out of the side.
My only issue with Billet, like the next season, I think is the worst. Maybe joint with the next man coming up, but I thought we were awful. Our first season at London Stadium was embarrassing. Like he lost to Astra. We've got to include that. He lost to Astra Gugu.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. I mean, that is disgraceful in itself. And then we played some horrendously, like we were shocking. We were so open. His signings were terrible. We brought in Gokhan Tour. Honestly, that
Faguli, Harvard
yeah.
Norvite.
Oh God, not him. Oh my
But
God.
he gave us one of the probably the best memories. The best memory I have in football, no hands down, is that last game at Upton Park, the 3-2 over Man United. Honestly, I was there. It was emotional, roller coaster game. Everything brilliant about it. Good cup run that season. He managed us during the most difficult period, I think, or one of the most difficult periods in the club's history, moving to stay to the new stadium in one of the probably the worst stadium migration in the history of football. We had so many problems, fights in the stands constantly, trouble with atmosphere where the fans had got mixed up. We had the Payet dilemma where he just,
Couldn't be arsed.
allegedly down tools, refused to train mid-season, forced to sell him for cheap. And Bilic had to deal with all of that. And he wasn't really backed in the transfer window. The club, that first season, decided to go quantity over quality. I think there's a lot of context with Bilic that I think hurt him and hindered him. Yes, he has to take responsibility, I think, in a lot of ways of not being able to manage the team he had and us being so open. But I look at it and I think what he had to deal with, it would be difficult for any manager. Last season, Upton Park, that game, cup run, most difficult season. I would put him there personally.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Great bloke as well. Probably the manager I've liked the most, just as a person, like off the pitch. And
Yeah.
I think that counts for something. You don't count for loads in football, obviously success and all of that, but connecting to a manager and feeling that they represent what your club represents, I think is massively key.
Yeah, he was very likable. I've got to admit that with him.
Yeah.
Another thing, my nan met him in the supporters club, and they used to discuss the law a lot. So not very interesting.
Right. Yeah, because he had a law degree.
Yeah, he's very intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah, very intelligent guy. Law degree, played in a band. Honestly, I absolutely loved him as a bloke. But yeah, I have to put him behind. It hurts me to put him behind Big Sam, but I have to be fair. I have to. Because of, Big Sam stabilizers took us up, all of that crap. It fucking hurts me to put him there. Manuel Pellegrini.
Oh my God. Shocking.
I knew you would. Shocking.
Pragmatic, crap, awful. I mean, we weren't even good in the season that people sometimes bring up to defend him a little bit is the year he came 10th, which was his first season at 2. But even then, Fabianski got our hammer of the year. He faced the most shots in the league. We lost our first few games in the league. We were terrible. I think he was absolutely awful. Wasted all the money. Shocking. Shocking.
I mean, he did buy Fabianski.
Yeah.
He brought in some decent players and some crap like Roberto. It's a tough one. Yeah, I have to say, I don't know whether pragmatic is the word to use. I mean, I have to say, I found the football boring. It was akin to, there was a period where Arsenal under Wenger were really tough to watch because they try and walk it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
That's what this period was, walking it in the back of the net, passing sideways constantly, about 100 passes before you get to the goal. I found it very boring.
Yeah,
personally.
we were so soft as well. We were so easy to break down with. It used to be, it wasn't uncommon at all that we'd face 20 plus shots in a game. That's what I mean.
This 6-0, 5-0, 4-0. we were
mate.
getting under Pellegrini.
He's crap. He is crap. That guy. Honest. Obviously, he's had a great managerial career. But at West Ham, he was shocking. And remember, Fabianski wasn't even his first choice goalie that he wanted. He actually wanted Roberto as the first choice originally. So, awful. I'd put him straight in terrible.
I don't know, like, because yes, okay, look, whether that's here or there, whether he did want Roberto as his first choice, right? I think if Fabianski don't get injured that season, we finish mid-table, top half, right? I think the impact that Roberto had, and yeah, he signed him. Obviously, who Silos we brought in as director of football.
He bought Diop. He bought
Yes.
Fabianski. He bought Roberto. He bought Haller. He bought Haller second season. First season, he bought
Anderson.
Yarmolenko, Felipe Anderson. Yeah, overall shocking.
I would put him in. I'd put him in crap personally.
Oh, I can't.
At the point he got sacked, we weren't anywhere near as bad as we were like this at the same point, you know, this season.
I disagree. I'm sorry. I think although we are shocking this season, I thought we looked like that Leicester game. If you go back and watch the highlights of the goals we conceded the night that he got sacked, oh my God. I think they're the two worst defensive goals I've ever seen. I nearly collapsed watching it. I honestly, he's so bad.
Where out of all of these, where would you put him, right?
Just about squirms in ahead of Avram Grant for me.
It's hard. I'm tempted to put him behind Rhoda, but yeah, all right. I'll begrudgingly. I've always maintained he's not as bad as people say, but yeah, we did get battered some seasons. Okay, the moment that everything's been building to, the big one.
I've got to change my profile picture for this one. We weren't great in his first stint at all.
No, and we played right. This was the thing that pissed me off, where I didn't want him. Right, that Stoke game was the last straw, because Stoke were the worst team in the league that by far that season. They were awful at home. He set up so defensive against Stoke, and it's like I was just like, if we can't go for it against fucking Stoke, yeah, and actually just play like the home team. When are we going to be? And that was the point where I was just like, nah, I do not want this guy to stay. Like,
I didn't want him to stay, I've got to be honest.
You did or didn't?
I did.
Really? Are you just saying that respectively now because you've,
No, I wanted him back as well. The night Pellegrini, I can show you, I've got an Instagram post on my West Ham line about it. The night Pellegrini was sacked, I put on a post, sack Pellegrini, get Moyes in. I didn't call him Mr. Moyes at the time, but I'd say the first stint wasn't good at all. I actually remember as well defending him when we were rumoured to wanting him back because his win percentage in his first season was so crap. His first stint, I think he won 9 games. I've got 9 wins, 10 draws, 12 losses. He kept us up, but his awful win percentage meant that West Ham fans weren't happy. Our best players during him, he converted Arnautovic into a striker. With a great stroke. Also, Masuaku was really good in the first stint under Moyes. One of the first good times under Masuaku. He converted him into the left wing back position. I remember Chelsea at home. Masuaku was really good, and we were chanting his name, saying he's better than Lukaku. So yeah. But his first stint weren't good. I've got to admit that. No. But yeah,
if it was just his first stint, I'd probably put him there. Around there somewhere on his first stint alone. I hated watching us under Moyes' first stint. The second stint, he gets called in again to save the day,
and he did.
And gets that the 4-0. I think it was the 4-0 one over Bournemouth, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this is brilliant. But I remember there's an instant match reaction. I'm trying not to get carried away. It's fucking Bournemouth, but that's great. And then I think we were shit for a little bit after that.
We were, but there was a lot of problems in the club when he came in. There was a lot of toxicity behind closed doors as well. People really weren't happy. and that also coincided with lockdown. And at the start of lockdown, we were shocking. Like we lost our first two games, and I was like, "Oh my god, we actually might go down." And then we sort of picked it up.
Yeah, well, we actually ended. I remember that the second season. We ended the season quite well when he replaced Pellegrini. I remember, and I think that form, even though we started the season crap, it continued right into the COVID season.
Mm.
Um, Loads of fans at the time, Moose and fucking clowns like that, were attributing our success to COVID and no fans. Which I actually defended Moyes and said it done him a disservice and the players to say that we were that good because the fans weren't in there.
Mm.
But it was a good time. Obviously, we had that memorable draw against Spurs. We get 6th place finish. Great.
Oh, he done an outstanding job. One of the best jobs in West Ham history from Mr. Moyes when he first came in. He brought in players who were unknown relatively, such as Thomas Souček, Vladimir Soufal. Obviously, there was a few really good prospects he brought in, such as Jarrod Bowen, who proved to be a great signing. Also brought in Saeed Benrahma. Got the best out of Pablo Fornals, who was another player that Pellegrini ruined.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when that season when we came sixth was one of my favourite seasons. He brought in Lingard, who'd only got one goal the season before, and Moyes turned him into the next Messi. I mean, what a job! What a man!
But obviously, next, he gets us into Europe after that, right? European semi-final.
Yeah,
Takes us to
incredible nights.
incredible nights. Sevilla, Lyon, some
Unreal.
great results. Yeah. Ultimately, we lose, and then we finish 7th, losing 6th place at the end, to Brighton when we're winning the game. I think all we needed was a draw.
But 7th and 6th compared to what we were watching under Pellegrini, still a great, throwing that
Yeah,
word out,
but
great.
we bottled it. We bottled it because I think that season in the league, that was the start of our problems. We were
I agree.
awful. He had the chance in January to sign players to help us, come in, fresh legs, help us compete in the league and in Europe. He said he chose not to, right? He wants to get the right players, take his time. He's going to find the right striker in the summer. Desperately needed a striker. Antonio was running on fumes. He was playing Jamaica, traveling all around the Americas and Caribbean. Antonio was playing every game of football for us. The geezer was knackered. Did not bring any reinforcements in, not even on loan, like a Lingard one. We did. So that decision, I think, costs us the Europa League and the top 6 finish. I
It
really think.
does. Yeah, it's not ideal, but still, in the grand scheme of things, 7th.
But this season,
Yeah,
this brings him down.
bit unlucky. I'm
Come
joking.
on.
I'm
I
joking.
was going to say £200 million spent. He's tried to go from, counter-attacking football to possession-based football. We've lost somehow the ability to score set pieces, which was one of our biggest strength. We were the best in the league at scoring set pieces, which really shows you actually how we've always really had a problem with scoring from open play. Last season, if you remember rightly, our goals dried up towards the second half of the season, big
It
time.
did, yeah, but we still scored in every home game.
Yeah, but set pieces were our main threat.
Yeah.
And that's gone. We've scored, I think, one set piece or two set pieces all season, which has massively taken away our goals. We're 18th in the league. Like I said, £200 million spent. The football is horrendous. Really, really bad. We got, and we still haven't been battered apart from that Brighton game. But I think so many decisions he made, signing Paqueta to be our top creator, comparing him to Dimitri Payet and signing him to be a number 10, were shocking football sort of talent ID there. Skamaka signs him, expects him to be another Antonio. Um, so yeah, I think this season really worked against him.
I think the first 2 seasons I'd have him as unreal, like one of the best managers, one of the best overachievers at the time in the world. This season's been a massive failure. The money spent has been shocking. Our recruitment before this season was incredible. Remember, he brought in the likes of Craig Dawson and turned them into great players. This season, the recruitment's been shocking. As you said, the fact that we had 2.5 years or whatever it was to find a striker and he chose someone that doesn't suit the system one bit is very worrying. So I am going to be fair. But obviously, he has won 10 out of 10 in the Conference League, which is ideal. And overall, we're basing it on his overall tenure at West Ham. This season, you'd put him in terrible. Overall, I think he's got been great.
Come on.
He's
Come
got to
on.
be.
You can't say this season terrible. Like, say you took this season away, right?
Yeah.
The end of last season. You could make an argument, I think, for putting him up there. But when you add this season in, he's had more money than any of these managers, right?
But you've got to consider inflation and the way the
Yeah, but
market
I
is
think
now.
even if you adjust for inflation, the money that he has had, the backing he has had, has been huge. He has been allowed to have more control over transfers than anyone in the Golden Sullivan era. That was one of the big things where he come in and said, yeah, if I don't have a say over players, I'll walk. I wouldn't be here if I couldn't have a say on players. That was what he said.
But when he came in, all the other managers who have got high finishes, they've had someone before them that hasn't done too badly. For example, who was it earlier that came seventh but was just after Redknapp, for example? Gianfranco
Yeah,
Zola.
Roda.
Or yeah, Rhoda, whoever it was. But Moyes, he was coming into a crap team who had no identity, and he completely turned it around. Remember, we have one of the worst scouting departments in the world. He was completely against it.
Arguably, we still do.
Oh yeah, we still do. I think you've got to. I know people. I'm gonna get a lot of backlash from this. I know I am, but you've got to stick him in great. I think you do.
Listen, there's no, like, he hasn't won a trophy, right? He hasn't won a single.
Convince you. This profile picture not convince you.
Well, listen, I don't know if that's from the future, but let's stay now in March 22nd as we're filming this. As today, he has not won a trophy with this football club.
But we have to say as well, yes, these people have won trophies and Moyes hasn't, but all of our trophies were won in the olden era. In the modern era, we haven't come close to a trophy, so you can't really judge.
Well, that's unfair. Pardew came closer than any manager.
Yeah, came close, but we've not won a trophy for 40 years, like 40 odd years. You've got to. Moyes has done better than Pardew, in my opinion. I really do think he has.
But look at what he's had. Look at what he's had. Pardew, you said every manager that's done well has come on the back of another manager. Pardew came from the Championship and took us up. And then
but we didn't go up first season.
No, we didn't. But it's not easy. Everyone will tell you it's not easy to get out of that division. It is tough. It sounds easy to think, West Ham, we should piss that. Look at Leeds. Look at Nottingham Forest. They'll tell you it's not to get us out after the second season is good. And then with that team, building on that with very little finances to a team that can take the champions of Europe all the way to the end and come within seconds of winning the FA Cup is an incredible achievement with the resources. Moyes has been heavily back, and look at the squad that he has had, the team he has had to get this team now.
Last 2 years, he had players who couldn't keep the ball and he completely made a counter-attacking game that was brilliant. What a manager.
Well, he chose to give up the counter attack because he got found out. That counter attacking system got found out. He hasn't got an answer for an alternative. That's the problem.
I know. I agree with you, and I'd let go of him at the end of this
He's
season.
a one-trick pony.
But judging on his tenure, the first 2 years were no one would have predicted. It was incredible from Moyes.
But the thing is, I think that the things that's gone on this season, I think there's going to be long-term negative repercussions from this season. The spend, the players, potentially players wanting to leave. If we get relegated, again, we say this as we sit 18th in the league.
But the problem is, you say it might happen. We might win the Conference League and stay up, and then he leaves and we get a new manager in and we're fine again. I think he's at least got to be indecent. I'm sad to concede. Great.
But to me, if he wins the conference, keeps us up, and leaves, I would definitely consider putting him there if he does those things.
1,000,000%.
And that's something to revise. I think as things stand at this time, he goes decent.
Above Redknapp.
Whoa. I would put him.
Oh, above Pardew, please.
Yeah, but look, everyone brings up the European Cup run, right? Everyone brings up Europe semi-final, Europe semi, FA Cup final, closer than anyone. Like the semi-final, we was nowhere near close to winning that. We weren't at the races, right? So we got to the semi. We didn't compete in the semi. We competed toe to toe with the best team in Europe by judging by them being European champions, and should have beat them if not for a brainless clearance.
But Liverpool weren't. I mean, credit to Pardew. I'm not
Champions League.
Yeah, but they weren't. It was the worst Champions League winners of all time.
Okay, yeah, but that's still the worst Champions League winners of all time are still better than Frankfurt, Sevilla.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. But back to back Europe with a with unknown players in some of the positions. I think he's got to go above AP.
But again, unknown players and no spend. You know, it's do you know what? I'm tempted. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I'm fighting it as well. Part of me thinks, and this is the thing. What I said about Bilic, loving him as a person, I cannot stand this man on a personal level. I think, like Sam, he's arrogant. He doesn't take responsibility. He's had a pop at the fans. He's taking credit for raising the expectations of fans, and that's why we're not happy about being in a relegation battle. He's dour. He's miserable. He's everything I dislike in a manager as a person. We play shit football. So that does, I have to say that obviously comes into it for me. Like Franco Zola, great bloke, warm. So managers like that, you're more patient with. It's like Klopp. Say if Pardew did everything Klopp's done at Liverpool, right? Not Pardew, sorry, Moyes done everything Klopp's done at Liverpool, but he's Moyes. I think he gets less patience and less time than Klopp because Klopp's a lovable guy.
Yeah, but if I want a nice guy, I appoint Tom Skinner. I think as a manager,
but he's not even like a Mourinho where there's like if he had that justified arrogance, like he's a prick, but he wins and he's good and he's got the history to back it up. Like, I love Mourinho. Yeah, he's an arsehole, but I love him.
Yeah, but Moyes, that's why I like Moyes.
Yeah, but Moyes, it's unfounded. It's unjustified. He has achieved nothing in this game to think that he's all that. I'm sorry.
But, I mean, what he's done with West Ham, I'd be arrogant if I'd done what he done.
No way.
You've got, I mean, he's got to have a bit. But if you take a team from a relegation battle to back Europe, you'd sit there and think, bloody hell, I've done a good job.
Yeah, you should think that. You should think that. But to be arrogant and to think that you're this hot shit as a manager, right? I'm sorry. He acts like he's bigger than the club. He's not. He could not shine Mourinho's shoes, but he carries himself like he is Jose Mourinho. he's you look at him in press conferences, you know, he's rude to a lot of the press. He's just, as a person, I do not like him at all, which does play a part in it with me. But I cannot take away those 2 seasons because I loved him, and he did start to warm to me, and I did fight his corner on the many shows with rival fans. So just this season's so fucking bad, but he did have more backing.
He is that guy. We've got to be fair. He is that guy.
But the West Ham football that we love.
I think he's got to be above Pardew.
All right, that hurts me.
I'm happy.
That hurts me. And the thing is, right, you did dock points from Redknapp for being shady and having all the issues, your nan not liking him because he was a bit of a prick. That you got to say the same about him. I mean, Jordan Hugill, he's got to go down for Jordan Hugill. 10 million.
No. We're not taking him down for that.
Come on. You talk about shady. His brother was his agent at his ex-club. I think his brother was either his agent or he was on work for the club. That deal was so dodgy.
Dan, who made Arnautovic a striker?
Yeah, he did. That works in his favour. But who made Jordan Hugill a West Ham striker and never played him? He came on as a sub in one game, and then I went and saw him against Dagenham and Redbridge for a charity game. I went to that, and that was the only time I ever saw him score. I'm one of the few people that's seen Jordan Hugill live score in a West Ham shirt.
Yeah, no, that signing was disgusting. But overall,
10 million.
We'll leave him there, I think, or possibly put him in great, but we'll leave him there.
Possibly not. Possibly not. There's no way I would put that next to this man. No. Just no. Yeah. It's just everything. I can't wait for him to be gone. But if he wins that Conference League and keeps us up, I will be grateful and I will say thank you. And if he leaves and ends at that, if he wins that and he leaves, you can look back and say,
oh,
fair play.
If he wins the Conference League and leaves at the end of the season, having kept us up and finishing, I don't know, 13th, that'd be like a career mode sort of achievement from him in those 3 seasons.
Yeah, and the best thing for him to do is leave because I don't think he can improve. I think he can only go down from there. Leave on a high, the best, and don't even think about mentioning this man.
I think it's between 2. Ron Greenwood and John Lyall.
Yeah. I think it has to be. I think it has to be one of those 2. Yeah, great, laid the foundation, but these 2 men, you know, really epitomized the West Ham way of football that was, you know, started really by Fenton. And still talked about to this day, still loved. It's got to be Greenwood or Lyall, and this one's hard to choose. I would lean towards Lyall. Greenwood, though, I think the European trophy, the Cup Winners' Cup, our only European trophy, does help give him the edge. You know, some great players that he brought through. I think I would edge it to Greenwood.
Yeah. Greenwood, the master over the apprentice, just about. I think both are brilliant, but Ron Greenwood tops it for me. An innovator of football, brought some great academy players through, won trophies with the club, and had an established and long, incredible spell at the club. He made West Ham a great team to watch, a great team in terms of people loved the club. They loved what it was all about. As we said, we brought some great academy players through. A couple of them ended up winning the World Cup with England. Unbelievable job. And he just pips Lyall and Mr. Moyes for me.
And Mr. Moyes, no, I fully agree. And there it is. I mean, that's all of our managers in the entire history of West Ham, right? 123 years, you know, as West Ham United. Obviously, post Thames Ironworks. That's all of our managers. Some clubs, Watford, I mean, geez, you'll be here all day doing their tier list. I
Yeah,
mean, they've had more managers in the last 10 years than we've had in our
yeah.
lot in all of this, you know.
If we were doing the research for the Watford one, we'd just be like, yeah, he was here for 3 weeks. That was it.
Yeah, that's a challenge to any Watford fan channel. Do this on your channel. But yeah, listen, Alfie, mate, thank you very much, mate. Thanks for that. Brought some great research. It was a good debate. We agreed more than I thought we would.
Yeah.
At the end, but it just shows really when it looks down to it, we're very much aligned when it comes to football opinions, just not when it comes to Moyes or Ben Rama.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind downgrading Moyes just because of the amount he's played Ben Rama this season, but yeah, we'll keep him there.
I'll listen. I'll go with that.
No.
That to me, that would give him that. That would do that for me. But yeah, we'll stick him there. We'll stick him there. So listen, mate. Yeah, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me West Ham Online on Instagram, West Ham Online 5 on Twitter. I'm often on E20 Zone TV as well on the YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll be doing some more videos soon. I've really enjoyed this one, so hopefully we can do another one soon.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely have you back. We've got some other things we can do, debates and all sorts of stuff. So I definitely want to get you on with Dom at some point, who blocked you on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm blocked. I've been blocked for a while by Dom, sadly. So he was on Space the other week though when I was on there.
But
so yeah,
he was drunk though.
yeah.
Yeah. So no, definitely have you go back on. Everyone, let us know down in the comments below. What would you change about this tier list? Do you agree with it? Who is the best West Ham manager and who is the worst? There it is. Lou Macari comes in at the worst. Ron Greenwood the best.